Runaway Dolls, chapter 15 and 16. Yesterday, we ended with Annabelle having been taken to the doll hospital in McGinty's. She figured out where all of the missing dolls were at. And she also saw a mean Mimi doll. And the author did a really good job, I think, because they made us think that Mimi really was a living doll again and was not really in doll state. But it turned out that it was just a dream that Annabelle had. A really bad dream, but a dream nonetheless. And she connected it to The Wizard of Oz, kind of like how we make connections to stories. It helps us to, those connections help us to figure out words we might not know. If we think about a story we've already read or heard, and all of those connections are just good tools to have as readers. And Annabelle showed us that when she connected it, even though it was The Wizard of Oz, the movie, what I know is that Wizard of Oz was actually a book before they turned it into a movie. Chapter 15, I told you, was called Extreme Makeover Doll Edition. Half an hour after the cleaning crew had left, Annabelle felt a similar shift in the atmosphere of the doll hospital. Around her, dolls began to stir and murmur, and within a few minutes the hospital had come to life, although not in quite as spectacular a fashion as the toy department came to life, since without Marisol's help, the dolls on the high shelves had great difficulty climbing to the floor. Many of them didn't bother. "Angelica!" Annabelle cried. "How did you get here? What happened? And what are the twins and the mom doll doing here?" Angelica attempted a smile. "There's a very simple explanation," she said. "Yes, you were kidnapped," replied Annabelle. She glanced at the Princess Mimi doll, but Mimi had neither moved nor spoken. She stared straight ahead with dull eyes. "Not exactly. Someone did take us, but we weren't kidnapped." "I don't understand," said Annabelle. "You know Charlie?" asked Angelica. Annabelle frowned. "Charlie from the cleaning crew?" "Yes. He brought us here. He brought the twins and mom and me and a couple of other dolls from downstairs. The rest of the dolls were brought to the hospital by their owners." "But why did Charlie bring you here?" "Because he wanted..." Angelica paused, thinking. Then she said, "Charlie takes his job very seriously. He's the head of the cleaning crew, you know, and he's new to the job. He's only been working here a few weeks, and he wants to make a good impression. Have you noticed that he doesn't just mop and dust and move on? He takes his time and tidies up. He even has a motto, like Elsip had, only his is, a place for everything and everything in its place. When it goes beyond that, Charlie fixes things too. If a shelf is crooked, he straightens it. If a table leg is wobbly, he tightens it." "And," said Annabelle, suddenly understanding, "if something is wrong with a doll, he brings it to the hospital." And this is Angelica and Annabelle having their conversation. "Yes," replied Annabelle. "He saw the mom doll and brought her here to have those marks removed. And he kept hearing Viramax shout, 'Batter up!' which he knew wasn't right. I think he brought Vixamax along just in case he developed the same problem. And he brought you here to have your smile repainted." "Exactly. He saw me lying on the counter the day I was almost sold. Nell had forgotten to put me away, and I think Charlie was going to return me to the case, but then he noticed my mouth, and he brought me up here instead. Nobody else has ever bothered to do that, but Charlie thinks of those things. You know what, Annabelle? Thanks to Charlie, I'll probably get a new owner right away. I know I'm expensive, but when people see me with a smile, well, I don't think I'll be stuck in that case much longer. Isn't that good news? It's wonderful, said Annabel, trying to sound enthusiastic. You don't seem very happy, said Angelica. I'm happy for you. Annabel watched Viramax and Vixamax make their way to the end of a low shelf where Mom Funcraft had been placed. Truly I am, continued Annabel. I was just thinking about what a mess I'm in now. Worse than before. Way worse than before. Why is it worse? You're going to have your hair repainted. Isn't that a good thing? Oh, I see. You don't want to have your hair fixed because if you find your way home, then your owners will notice and... Angelica stopped speaking and exclaimed, Annabel, my goodness, what happened to your hand? Is that why you're here? I just assumed it was because of your hair. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's okay, said Annabel, and she told Angelica the story of spoiled Maggie. Then she added, but now, Angelica, don't you see? I probably won't get out of here until sometime next week, and the Palmers are going to be returning from their vacation on Saturday. And for all I know, by the time that I get back to the toy department, Bobby or Tilly or Tiffany or Bailey may have been sold. We might all be split up. Hey, Vixamax called from below. He had left Viramax with Mom Funcraft and was now stooped over a piece of paper on the counter. It was on top of a small stack of papers, and he lifted it up and examined it in the pale moonlight. This is about you, Annabel, he said. About me? What is it? And how do you know it's about me? It's Mrs. Katz's instructions for the person who's going to fix you next week. Your work order, said Vixamax importantly. There's a work order for every doll in here so that the repairs will be done properly. And I know this one is yours because where it says item, Mrs. Katz filled in doll with green hair. Who else could that be? Annabel scowled. No one. Vixamax studied the paper. Wow, he said after a few moments. Annabel, you're not just going to have your hand fixed. You're going to get a makeover. What? Exclaimed Annabel. Yeah, there's a long list here, and the first thing on it is repaint hair. Get a makeover? Repaint my hair? But I can't go back to the Palmer's house with a makeover. Even as Annabel felt panic rising, Vixamax continued speaking. Let's see. You're going to get a new dress to replace the... What does it say here? To replace the faded and yellowing garments. It will be blue gingham with brown buttons, and your eyes are going to be repainted to give you a bolder, perkier look. Annabel was speechless. Do you want me to go on? Asked Vixamax. There's more. No, cried Angelica. Don't say another word. This is terrible. Look how upset Annabel is. I'm sorry, said Vixamax, who did indeed sound sorry. But I thought you'd want to know. Yes, you're right, said Angelica quickly. Annabel does need to know. But what are we gonna do? Wailed Annabel. For starters, calm down, said Vixamax. Viramax, come here. Mom, you too. We need to talk to Annabel and Angelica. The twins and Mom Funcraft made their way across the counter and up the shelves to Annabel, who was huddled miserably, knees drawn up, head buried in her hands. I have to get out of here, said Annabel, before they had even sat down, and not in a few days, but as soon as possible, before anybody touches one green hair on my head. I'm serious, she cried when she glanced up and saw Angelica try to smile again. Batter up, exclaimed Viramax. Mom Funcraft eyed Annabel critically. I really don't see what the problem is, she said after a moment. Why would you want green hair? Why would you want to stand out? I like looking exactly like all the other moms. She reached up to pat her own hair. Annabelle just stared at her. But I can't go home looking different, she paused. Did you not take the oath? Annabelle, really, don't panic, said Vixamax. I have an idea. Tomorrow is Sunday, but the store is open in the afternoon. The hospital is open then, too, and someone named Miss Hollis comes in. She's supposed to repair Viramax and take a look at me, and I heard Mrs. Katz ask her to return us to the toy department on her way out. I don't know why, but she did, and that's good for us. Okay, said Annabelle. So tomorrow night we'll come back and rescue you. Really, said Annabelle? That would be wonderful, but how are you going to, there are so many. How will you get up the escalator and how will you get in here? Isn't the door locked? Obstacles, muttered Mom Funcraft. Messy. I don't like messes. I think we can deal with the obstacles, said Angelica. Annabelle nodded. An image of Auntie Sarah had come into her mind, and Annabelle knew that obstacles wouldn't stop her aunt. Vixamax grinned at her. I agree. All right, let's think. We must be tidy, very tidy, said Mom. I know one good thing, spoke up Angelica. The cleaning crew comes in much earlier on Sunday evening and doesn't stay very long, so you'll have more time for rescue operation. A longer night, agreed Vixamax. Operation XL, Mom Funcraft exclaimed suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. What? Said Annabelle. Hey, exclaimed Viramax, that's a good idea. Operation XL is one of the games that can be downloaded into Vixamax and me, and it's all about a rescue operation. Has it been downloaded into you? Asked Annabelle. Yes. Let me see what information I can retrieve from it. A moment, please. Vixamax stepped away from the others, hopped onto a counter, and plugged himself into a mystifying piece of equipment. Annabelle saw him fiddle with the screen on his belly. Then he unplugged himself and returned to the others. Okay, I have a plan, he said. Tomorrow night, as soon as Charlie and his crew have left the toy department, Viramax and I will tell the others what's really been happening, that you're in the doll hospital and there haven't been any kidnappings after all, so it will be safe to be loose in the store. Then we'll gather a group of dolls to come back to the hospital with us. You'd better make sure Marisol is one of them, said Mom Funcraft. You're going to need someone tall. I hope she hasn't been sold, said Angelica. Fingers crossed, said Annabelle, feeling hopeful for the first time since Maggie had slammed her into the counter. We'll have to take 2 escalators, said Vixamax. 4, really, said Annabelle. 2 up and 2 down. That's all right. Marisol can carry us. Won't the escalators be turned off by then? Asked Annabelle. Said Vixamax. Maybe. If they are, Marisol will walk up and down. I've just thought of another mess, said Mom with disapproval. The hospital is locked at night. How will you get back in here? I have the answer to that one, said Angelica. I know where the spare key is kept. We'll slide it under the door when the rescue party arrives. And Marisol is tall enough to reach the lock, said Annabelle. She can open the door. Ah, nice and tidy, said Mom, looking relieved. We'll have you out of here in no time, added Vixamax, and then we'll figure out how to get you guys home. All the way home. Angelica, what's the matter? Her hand! Annabelle does need to have her hand fixed before she leaves here. That's right, said Annabelle. I can't go back to the Palmers with a broken hand any more than I can go back without my green hair. And what about Annabelle's work order, said Angelica. Excuse me. The person who's supposed to repair Annabelle on Monday will find a work order and no doll to go with it. Everyone fell silent. At last Annabelle, a small smile on her lips, said, I have an idea. It's a little risky, but I think it will work. We'll have to take a few chances. I like chances, said Vixamax. I don't, said Mom. We don't have a choice, said Annabelle. Okay, listen. The only human who will be in here tomorrow is Miss Hollis. Is that right? Yes, said Vixamax, except for customers. Does anybody know where the blank work orders are kept? Top drawer, said Angelica, the one below the computer. Annabelle nodded. Then what about this idea? We'll get a blank work order and we'll fill it out for me, except that in the space where the repairs should be listed, the only thing we'll write is glue cracks in hand. We'll leave the work order where Miss Hollis will be sure to see it, said Vixamax, so she'll fix you tomorrow. And we'll have to get rid of the other work order, said Annabelle. She frowned. Wait a second. What's going to happen on Monday when Mrs. Katz comes in and I'm not here? Messy, messy, said Mom. Batter up, said Vixamax. Sorry, Viramax. Why do I get them confused? It's kind of like getting your names confused in class. Don't worry, Mrs. Katz won't be here again until Wednesday, said Vixamax, and if she realizes you're gone, she'll just think you've been taken back downstairs already. She knows you're a store doll, like Viramax and me. Come on, said Angelica, pulling Annabelle to her feet. Let's get started with the new work order right now. Who's going to do the writing? Asked Vixamax. We need someone who can make big letters like a human and also copy Mrs. Katz's handwriting. I'll do it, said Annabelle. And she did. I don't know if you guys have seen the big giant pencil in my classroom. I might not have pulled it out, but it's a little bit like what it looks like Annabelle's doing in this picture. When she had finished, she placed the work order on top of the pile. Then she and Angelica tore the first one into tiny pieces, as small as if the paper had been shredded by a mouse, and swept them over the edge of a counter and into a wastebasket below. Nice work, commented Mom. Anything else? Asked Annabelle. Angelica shook her head. I don't think so, said Vixamax. Then, said Annabelle, there's nothing to do but wait for tomorrow and hope that Miss Hollis repairs the twins and me, and that we can carry out the rescue operation tomorrow night, added Vixamax. On Sunday afternoon, Miss Hollis showed up exactly when Vixamax had said she would. She repaired Annabelle first, then several other dolls, including Viramax. She found no glitches in Vixamax. When she closed up the hospital at the end of the afternoon, she took the twins with her as she had been instructed to do. Why didn't they just say take Annabelle too? But then the book would be too short. So here we go. Later, after Charlie and his crew had come and gone, Annabelle and Angelica sat side by side on their shelf, holding hands and waiting. The doll hospital had grown dark, except for the light coming through the windows, by the time Annabelle heard a scratching sound at the door. As planned, the biggest doll in the hospital, who was much bigger than Annabelle, but not nearly so big as Marisol, fetched the spare key from a hook beneath the counter and slid it under the door. Moments later, the door opened and in walked Marisol, the twins, and Tiffany. We're back, announced Viramax, very pleased to have been repaired. Annabelle and Tiffany shrieked when they saw each other, and Tiffany hugged Annabelle so fiercely that Annabelle feared her hand might break again. Come on, everybody, said Marisol. We better get going. Annabelle called goodbye to Mom Funcraft. She hugged Angelica and said, If I don't see you again, I hope you find a new home very soon. Then, with one final glance over her shoulder at the lifeless Princess Mimi, she followed her friends out the door. Marisol locked it and slid the key back through the crack. Moments later, Annabelle was on her way to the second floor. Chapter 16. Mrs. K. Robinson. Annabelle stepped around a rack of pajamas and lingerie, then jumped backward as a small figure shot out from behind a lacy pink nightgown and shouted, "Boo!" "Ah!" Annabelle let out a yelp. "It's me, Matilda May," said Tilly. "Tilly!" Annabelle scooped her sister into her arms. "I missed you. What are you doing here by yourself?" "She's not by herself." Bobby and Bailey emerged from the pajamas and groaned as Annabelle approached them, arms open wide. "No hugging!" cried Bobby. "Bobby took care of Tilly while you were away," said Tiffany. "He is my good big brother," announced Tilly. "Annabelle, we have great news," said Bobby. He glanced at Tiffany. "You didn't tell her yet, did you?" "Tell me what?" asked Annabelle. "Good, you kept the secret," said Bailey. "What? What secret?" cried Annabelle. "About Mrs. K. Robinson," said Tilly importantly. Annabelle looked confused. "The Palmers' neighbor?" "Come on, you guys, back to the toy department," said Marisol, striding through lingerie and into housewares on her long legs. So you can see the little dolls here. Bobby, Bailey, Tiffany, and Tilly and Annabelle, and then you can see Marisol's long legs. The smaller dolls ran after her, Bobby holding Tilly by the hand, and presently Annabelle heard cheering and the thwack of a ball on a bat and knew that a game was in progress again. As if she could read Annabelle's thoughts, Tiffany said, "Everything's pretty much back to normal here, except that Dakota Jane was sold while you were in the hospital. Truck and all." "Really?" said Annabelle. "I don't know whether to be happy or sad." "Be happy," said Tiffany. "DJ is. Getting sold was her dream." Annabelle nodded. Then she said, "So, what is this big secret?" "Let's go sit down," said Bobby, pointing to a quiet corner where a shelf of puzzles met a shelf of board games. "1 second," said Annabelle. She stood before the twins. "How can I ever thank you?" "Don't hug us!" screeched Vera Max, and he and his brother made a dash for the baseball game. "How can I ever thank you?" Annabelle asked Marisol, and then she threw her arms around Marisol's leg. "No problem," said Marisol. She left to find Elsapad. Annabelle sat on the floor with Tilly, Bobby, Bailey, and Tiffany. "Well," she said. "We made a great discovery while you were gone," said Tiffany. "About Mrs. K. Robinson," said Tilly. "The Palmers' neighbor?" agreed Annabelle. "But what does she have to do with anything?" A long conspiratorial silence followed. That means everybody else was in on the secret, and they all were quiet together. During which Tiffany, Bailey, Bobby, and even Tilly May all looked smugly at Annabelle. Finally, Bobby exclaimed, "She works here!" "At McGinty's," said Bailey. "In housewares," said Tiffany. "Only part-time," said Bobby, "but she'll be here tomorrow." "And one way or another," said Tiffany, "we're going to go home with her at the end of the day." "By hook or by crook," said Tilly. "But how?" asked Annabelle. "We're going to climb into her bag," Tiffany replied. "She was carrying a tote bag," Bailey interrupted his sister. "Into her bag," continued Tiffany, giving Bailey a pointed look, "and just ride home with her." "We can't, how?" sputtered Annabelle. "How are we going to do that without being seen?" We're not sure yet, said Tiffany, but we've been gone for over a week, and we could be sold at any minute, so we have to get home now. I know, said Annabelle, but running through the store... We did it on the day we got here and no one saw us, said Bailey. Not until we were standing on a counter in full view. That's true, said Annabelle. But getting from Mrs. K. Robinson's house to the Palmers... Do you have a better idea? Asked Bobby. No, admitted Annabelle. We're going to make it work, said Tiffany. And Annabelle, remembering when she had boldly written a new work order for herself and gotten rid of the old one, said... Okay, yes, we are going to make it work. The plan was simple. Scary, but simple. In the morning, Marisol would not put Annabelle, Bobby, and Tilly back in the glass case as usual, and Tiffany and Bailey would not return to the play area. Instead, the 5 dolls would hide behind a stack of Monopoly boxes on the bottom shelf of the board game display, which was just across the aisle from the china department. In housewares, where Tiffany was positive Mrs. K. Robinson worked. I heard her talking to Nell, Tiffany explained. The dolls planned to watch for Mrs. Robinson when she arrived for work and to note where she put her tote bag. Then, at some quiet point during the day, they would make a run for the bag, climb inside, and hide. They hoped there would be something under which to hide. They also hoped Mrs. Robinson would go straight home after work. A plan with a lot of holes in it, said Annabelle, heaving a sigh. If it has holes in it, is it still a plan? Asked Bobby. Yes, said Tiffany, just not a very good one. The next morning, Annabelle, Tiffany, Bailey, Bobby, and Tilly said goodbye to their friends and crept onto the shelf of games. And then they waited. And waited. And waited some more. No Mrs. K. Robinson. Annabelle began to feel nervous. She kept her eye on Marcy, who so far had been too busy to peek into the glass display case. At 11:30, when the toy department and housewares were bustling, as Annabelle supposed was the rest of McGinty's, Annabelle whispered to Tiffany, "Where's Mrs. Robinson? Shouldn't she be here by now?" "I told you, she's part-time," said Tiffany. "She'll be here soon." And she was. Promptly at noon, a woman carrying a Save Our Planet tote bag stepped off the elevator. "There she is!" Bailey whispered loudly. "She's carrying the bag. That's the first good thing," said Bobby. "And now she's putting it on the floor, right where we hoped she would put it," said Tiffany. "That's the second good thing." Annabelle was hoping for about 1,000 more good things when she spied Marcy walking through the toy department. "Hey!" Annabelle exclaimed softly. "Look, everybody!" 5 pairs of doll eyes fastened themselves on Marcy. She was carrying Angelica back from the doll hospital. "Angelica's smiling," said Tiffany. "I think she's pretty," commented Tilly. The dolls watched as Angelica returned to the glass case and placed on a stand where she hung daintily, smiling down on the toy department. Doesn't she look so much better with her smile? Let me see. Oh, Mrs. Wedlick. I didn't think about this. I should have marked it. Do you remember what her smile looked like? Oh my goodness gracious. Time is wasting. Oh, there it is. Okay. So here's Angelica before she went to the doll hospital. And there she is now. I think they're right. Somebody's probably going to buy her. The afternoon slipped away. "What time does Mrs. K. Robinson go home?" Tiffany whispered. "When the store closes," Bobby replied. That's in an hour, said Bailey. We don't have much time left. We'll still have to wait until not so many people are around, said Annabelle. If the plan doesn't work today, we could try it tomorrow, said Tiffany, sounding doubtful. No, today, by hook or by crook, said Tilly May. Annabelle slumped on the shelf. She was afraid of the journey ahead, but she agreed with Tilly, and she was feeling very impatient. She stared around the toy department. She saw a boy in the play area building a house for a Funcraft family. She saw a woman looking at a baby doll who reminded Annabelle in a dizzying sort of way of her own baby Betsy. And then she saw a girl and an older man standing in front of the glass case. Grandpa, said the girl, that is the most beautiful doll I've ever. She was pointing to Angelica. Annabelle grabbed Tiffany. Tiff! But before she could finish her sentence, Bobby said in a loud whisper, Now! And Bailey exclaimed, Remember to hold hands! Annabelle, clutching Bailey and Tilly May, found herself scrambling out of the hiding place. If anyone in McGinty's had been looking at just the right spot at that very moment, he would have seen 5 small dolls zip from the bottom shelf of a display in the toy department, run across the aisle and into housewares, and crawl into a canvas bag lying on its side behind a checkout counter. They were moving so fast that the last doll in line, a particularly tiny girl, couldn't keep her feet on the floor and was being pulled along like a kite. But no human saw any of this happen. The dolls had chosen a moment of calm in which the few store customers were busy writing checks or examining price tags or talking to store clerks. Several dolls saw what had happened, though, and silently wished their friends well. And that was the last Annabelle, Bobby, Tilly, Bailey, or Tiffany saw of the toy department in McGinty's. They flung themselves well back in the bag and found plenty of things beneath which to hide. Stay quiet, Annabelle cautioned Tilly. Later, when the dolls heard the announcement that the store would be closing, Annabelle squeezed her eyes shut and, thinking of Elsipad, visualized a safe and uneventful trip home, which was exactly what followed. Good night, Kay, said a voice high above the doll's head. Good night, replied Mrs. Robinson. See you tomorrow. The bag was picked up in something of a hurry, and it seemed to Annabelle, and carried through the store, down the escalator, and finally outside to the noises of the street. Several minutes later, Annabelle heard a car door open and felt the bag drop. She heard an engine start and thought, I'm riding in a car. A few minutes later, when the car slowed, turned a corner, and came to a stop, Annabelle tried to see Tiffany in the dark recesses of the bag, but she couldn't make out her face. And how she longed for a sign of encouragement from her friend. In the next moment, Mrs. K. Robinson might simply scoop up the bag and take it inside her house before the dolls had a chance to escape. Or she might set it down outside the car. She has to set it down. She must, thought Annabelle desperately. Mrs. K. Robinson lifted the bag from the floor of the car and said, Oh, I forgot to pick up the mail. Then she plopped the bag down into the driveway, where it again slumped on its side, and she walked away. Run, said Bobby. The dolls shot out of the bag and across the yard to the Palmers' lawn. They didn't stop until they had crossed it and were pushing their way through the captain's door. Chapter 17 is called Missing. We have only 3 chapters left. Yep, 3 chapters left. So, tomorrow I will read chapters 17 and 18, and then Thursday will be the last chapter and the ending of The Runaway Dolls. Hope you are enjoying this story as much as I am to read it. I would much rather be in a classroom reading to you in person, but this is as best as we can do, and we're going to make the best of it. See you tomorrow.